He sees the camera. Maybe.
Wow, good job. No crying. Not camera shy either, huh? Mr. Snorty Snort. Okay, let's go. Let's put more oil. No. Wait. I love you.
He's like staring at the camera.
Let's put some lotion in the back. Lotion you up, Mister. Lotion. Forget. Hi, handsome. And put just a little oil on your head because you have a dry scalp. Okay, can you do me a favor? Can somebody take out the towel under, please? And put the sandal.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh,
Ooh. Look at him enjoying the bath. Bless you.
Stop scratching yourself. You scratched his eye.
All right, sir. Can you put that under?
Beep.
Yay! Let's check out the new clothes.
This is way easier than Santino.
Well, because Santino's flipping now. Wait until he gets bigger.
No, for now. So.
Yeah, and then he starts turning like Sainty. Sainty got harder when he started turning. Because then he wanted to turn all the time. This kid just wants to eat his hand all the time. You okay?
I think so. Wait. How do you grab his arm through? Hold on. Hey. Hey.
Do you have him?
Part of his. Okay. Yo. How do you push his? I'm scared I'm gonna hurt him.
Here. Sometimes you just gotta push and pull there. There you go. Cover that. And our Malachi is complete. That was nice and easy.
Achievement unlocked.
Literally. Did you just fart?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And later I'm gonna swaddle him.
Burrito.
Burrito him. Let's
The
see.
baby
if it
burrito.
works.
Baby burrito. Scratched his eye. What are you looking at? Hi. Look at the lights. You're heavy. Hey. Hi. He's heavy. Look at this guy. Look at him. Hi. Yeah, he's heavy. Oh my goodness.
Look at this guy. Okay. Yeah, there. Hold this. It's recording.
Oh. All right.
Hi.
So probably the last video that you saw of us was when we really found out that we were pregnant. It has been one of the longest journeys of our lives. One of the longest things that had a lot of trials and tribulations and obstacles that we had to get through. So it was probably like week 9 or week 11. I'm not sure when our last vlog was.
I think, yeah, week 11, 12.
Yeah, something like that. So from that point forward, it was just craziness. So let's kind of go back in time and talk about where it started and everything that's happened. So I had really bad morning sickness in the first trimester. It was horrendous. I work as a dental hygienist, so when you're looking in someone's mouths or when you're looking down, you do not, and especially holding sharp instruments and stuff, you don't want to look you don't want to feel dizzy, you don't want to feel nauseous, but that's what I felt a lot of the time. Even if I wasn't eating anything, I just felt nauseous 24/7. Even going to sleep. Sleep was the only time when I actually fell asleep that I didn't feel nauseous. So the only thing that helped me was chewing gum all the time. So that's where it all began. To all the moms out there that have been pregnant, and obviously, doesn't it feel like you were pregnant forever? I just felt like I was pregnant forever. But so that started around May-ish. Then what happened was, after that, I'm trying to remember my timeline here. I wasn't feeling the greatest, and then after that we get a call from my OB, and I remember this clearly because I was in the middle of a consultation for work, and I get an emergency call from my OB. She's like, okay, you need to come in today or soon. So I'm panicking. Obviously both of us are like, okay, what's going on? Especially early in the pregnancy, is this going to affect us having the baby? Are we going to lose the baby? When your OB or your doctor calls you and tells you to come in on the same day, that's the automatic thing that you get to. But I get there anyway, and the one thing that I just kept thinking was, oh my gosh, is the baby okay? Because we were still early in the pregnancy. Doctor sits us down, and because of my age, so I am 34, because of my age, there were markers for developmental disabilities that they did find when they did the screening test for me. So the question was to us was that, because when we found out, it was at a point where if we were to decide whether we wanted to keep the baby or terminate the pregnancy because of the markers of developmental disabilities, this is the time that parents who do not want that in their child, if they wanted to terminate the pregnancy, we were right at the edge of it. Now, just to give you perspective, we both discussed it, like no matter what, our baby's our baby, our child's our child. They're a blessing that was given to us. So at that point, we would have kept the pregnancy regardless of whatever the situation was. But the doctor wanted us to do an NSPT. So, oh no, sorry, an IPT, right?
Yeah.
Where I took a blood test and they did a panel just to make sure, or just to see what type of developmental disabilities we can develop. So, Ruben was in the background dancing. So, I did it. And then maybe about a week later, we got a call again from the OB saying that everything was normal. So, thank goodness for that. But again, just to rewind, regardless of whatever the situation was, we would have still kept the baby. So then we had that. Then after that, we started, so I'm a type 2 diabetic. Let's backtrack. So like I started talking about, it all started with the first trimester with having like really, really bad morning sickness. To be fair, it lasted until maybe like 2/3 of the second trimester, and it got better. I did have bouts of nausea throughout. I hated chicken. Like anything with chicken, I absolutely hated it. Especially like at the shawarma places where they were cutting it. It was horrible. Good news is now I absolutely love chicken again. That was what I was afraid of, that I would just hate it for life. And we are a chicken family, so good on that. But then let's backtrack. So I talked about the panel and stuff. Then we got very excited to try to figure out whether we were having a girl and a boy. So warning, the places that you pay for to see the gender early, you could so the most accurate finding out is during the NIPT and during your anatomy scan. So which is what, week 20? We got excited and we paid a place $100 to try to find out the gender at like 11 weeks. So this lady, super sweet, showed us everything. She was like, okay, this is the head, this is whatever. And then she showed us and she's like, oh my God, look, there's no pee-pee. So she was like, I'm 98% sure that you are having a girl. So we went home that night and we're like, oh my God, we're gonna have a girl, because of course we have Ruben, our first son, and then we have Santino, who is our nephew. So we were like, okay, we're gonna have a girl in the family. We got super excited. Justin was excited too, because, you know, like we already found a name. It also takes a bit of time to kind of figure out or try to wrap your head around the gender of the baby that you're having, because you always try to kind of picture the future and how it's going to look, right? So that happens. My NIPT results come back and the OB was asking us like, oh, do you want to find out? And we're like, we're sure we're having a girl. And she comes around and tells us, no, you're having a boy. So if you could just imagine how our world kind of turns around. That was my fault. I started shopping early and I bought bows and all that jazz. So we got lucky that our next door neighbor who had a baby ended up having a girl. So we passed over a lot of the stuff that we got over to her. But for Justin, it did take a little bit of rejigging the brain, because for a while he did start calling, and we did start talking to my belly and calling the baby Charlotte. So, yeah, that was another doozy. But we confirmed it was a boy, and then, of course, at the anatomy scan, woohoo, the pee-pee showed itself. So we confirmed that we were having a boy. Now, after week 20, so that was the anatomy scan. That's where the ultrasound techs were a bit concerned and afraid that I had a short cervix. So basically what happened was, what they explained to us at least, was that due to my first pregnancy and having a C-section and being dilated at the same time, that there was a possibility that when they did cut through, they had to cut through my cervix, which made it short. So that means that there was a higher possibility and a higher chance of me having the baby preterm. That obviously scared us because, of course, at my age and with all the factors, with the work that I do, it's very physically difficult. Though I did half of it working from home because of everything that has been happening, we had to rethink a lot of things. Now, that day, this is the day we started where almost every appointment I had, we ended up going to the hospital. And we're not over exaggerating when I'm saying that almost every week we were at the hospital starting at week 20. So from that point, they told me to go to the hospital, and hospitals have the longest waiting times. If we accumulate all the hours that we waited, we probably can accumulate up to about a week or 2 weeks worth of hours, the amount of hours we waited at the hospital. And we started at Scarborough General. So we went there, they did their thing, they looked at it, they're like, okay, you have two different choices. We either can give you a certain medication, so progesterone, to help strengthen your cervix, or we can go in with a cerclage. So basically what a cerclage is a stitch that they put around, and it's like a little purse string that they put around the cervix, and then they tighten it so the baby doesn't come out. Now, one of the concerns that we did have, and one of the risks for that, is that there might be a potential that when they go in, that they might pop the water. And of course, if they pop the water, that means it induces labor. So at week 20, that was not a viable, that wasn't an option that we, or that wasn't a risk that we wanted to take, because it was just so early in the pregnancy. The risks outweighed the benefits during that time. And at week 20, usually any babies born around that time, they are not a viable fetus, I think is what they're called. But it's difficult to keep the baby alive because they're not developed enough. So we didn't want to risk that, and we wanted to see, okay, if we just took the progesterone, how far can we make it? So took that. 3 weeks later, we went back for an ultrasound, and yet again, they're like, go to the hospital, something's going on. So we go back to Scarborough General, wait for hours. The doctor checks, and at that point, I was 1 centimeter dilated, or 1.5 centimeters dilated, which was obviously a concern. Now, this is where the pregnancy became a high-risk pregnancy. Meaning, well, I was high risk already because I am diabetic, but this became more high risk because, like, within 3 weeks I started to dilate, which means that preterm labor was inevitable if we decided not to go for a cerclage at this time. So the doctor, of course, advised us that we should go get a cerclage done because of how quick the progression was to the opening of the cervix. So we were sent to Mount Sinai, which is a high-risk hospital. It was high risk so they could keep an eye on mom, but more More so, they are a facility that can handle preterm babies from the age of 24 weeks. So if in case I did have the baby then they have the support, the nurses, the knowledge and stuff to be able to keep the baby alive, or try to keep the baby alive. So went to the hospital, and that same, not the same night, but the morning after, I was brought in to do a cerclage. It was quick. It was easy. I mean, there was a little bit of soreness, but I was able to go home within 24 hours. The reason why they wanted to watch me was with my diabetes, just to make sure that my sugar is on track, because I didn't eat for a while because of the surgery. Now, from that point, the doctors did advise that I shouldn't be working in the clinic anymore. For those who know me, for those who know my personality, I am a person that's always out and about. The work that I chose and the work that I was in, I always encountered people on a regular day basis. I talk to people on a regular day basis, and I thrive off that. So having to stay home, and keeping in mind this was around August. So having to stay home and not even go to the mall, not even be able to go out to places as much because of me being high risk of having the baby early, really took a toll on me mentally. It was a long ride. For those parents, for those mothers that have been pregnant, just being pregnant overall is a roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes you feel good, sometimes you don't feel good. Sometimes you feel like you're winning, sometimes you feel like you're lost. And going through that journey, I just felt like I became a failure in being able to hold the baby in place. I was the vessel that was holding my child. So aside from the physicality of walking back and forth and not really doing much for a person that's out and about, mentally it played a game with me. So I felt like we could never win. That was one of the hardest things. And I hung on to my faith, and I hung on to the strength that my husband and my son gave me every single day to make sure that I'm okay and that I am mentally sound. Of course, with my sister, my mom, my dad, like people even at work were fantastic and always checking up on me. And I am super thankful that I had a boss that was the most understanding person in the world, that supported me and always made sure that I was comfortable without feeling punished, without feeling that I'm doing something wrong. She worked around everything that I needed and still ensured that I was able to still do what I loved to do while I was at home. I mean, I didn't clean teeth at home, but I was able to provide consultations, talk to patients at home regarding treatment, which helped me keep some sort of stability in my everyday life. So I feel like that was one of the hardest parts of the battle, was how long can I handle this mentally? So from that point, I ended up going to the specialty pregnancy clinic every week to get checked. We were stable for a while. So this check was at close to the hospital. So at this point, even in between that time, there were times where there were some scares. I ended up having rashes that we got nervous about, that I ended up that I might have a certain liver reaction. I forgot what it was called. What was it called? I got nervous that that's what was happening, and thank God it wasn't. And then there was a point in time where I was experiencing a lot of pain, that we thought that the baby was coming. We went there, and thank God, the cerclage was holding. It was just my hormones just being the way it is. I mean, at the end of it all, my OB said that it's just been unfortunate that it seems like I'm just allergic to pregnancy hormones, and it causes my body just to react in an adverse way. So 5 weeks later, we held on for 5 weeks. So week 28 came, and then I had the cerclage at week 28.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Sorry. Going back. So I had the cerclage at week 23, and then week 28, they felt that my cervix got significantly shorter within a week's time. So from the Thursday on week 27 to the Thursday on week 28, all of a sudden my cervix shortened from 2 centimeters to 1 centimeter. So the panic again happened where, okay, there's a possibility that you might give birth in 3 days. There's a possibility you can hold up until 38 weeks. I just feel like I should have just rented a room in that hospital, because I was there quite some time. At that point, they wanted to inject me with steroids, because though we made it to week 28, which is fantastic, because at that point, the chances of the baby surviving and thriving was a whole lot more than from week 20 and 23. At that point, they just wanted to make sure that the baby's lungs would be fully developed and ready for when and if he did come out. So I was on steroids. Not the pumping iron kind. It was just, it was steroids to be able to, again, to help with the baby development. So we were in the hospital, and it was just supposed to be a 24-hour thing. But because of my diabetes, the steroid would make my diabetes or my sugar go up higher than what we would like it to. And it took a little bit of a longer time for it to settle down. So instead of me being there for 24 hours, I ended up being there for about 4 or 5 days. And on top of that, there was a point in time they wanted to keep me there until I deliver, because of the amount of times that I've been in and out of the hospital. So there is apparently a community on the upper floor where moms who are at high risk or have potential, have the potential of having preterm labor, they just stay there due to the distance that they're traveling, but also just in case like something happens. So I declined that because Thanksgiving was miserable already. It was great because I got to spend it at least with my husband, but it was miserable because when we ordered the food, one, it was nasty. Number two, not being able to spend it with my son and with family was very, very miserable. So after week 28, after the steroids, we went home. And then for a couple weeks, everything was okay. I still went for my weekly checkup, and at this point, what they wanted, they didn't want me to go full term. So they didn't want me to go up until week 40. So Malachi is supposed to be due January 8th. But because of all the complications, my diabetes, and all the craziness we went through, they decided that they didn't want me to go all the way up to like week 40. They wanted to take me in and book my C-section for week 38. So I wanted a C-section. I had a C-section previously. The chances of me having birth naturally or giving birth naturally was just really low due to the size of like the canal and all that jazz. So we were supposed to have something set for week 38. So fast forward a couple more weeks later, week 34 came by. So at week 34, it was my regular visit to my endocrinologist. So this is the specialist that works with me and my diabetes. I see her in the morning. She takes my blood pressure and she gets concerned that it's really high. She's like, this isn't what your typical blood pressure is. Sometimes late during this time during pregnancy, high blood pressure is a concern. And then also, it's good news, but also something that could have admitted me in the hospital regardless was that my sugar started getting low. So, which means my insulin dependence and the insulin that I needed, the requirements started decreasing, which meant like it was a good thing on my end because I'm handling my sugars well, but also it was a bad thing because that means that there's a possibility that the nutrients and all the things that I'm eating is not getting to the baby. So this is where my endocrinologist told me to call triage at Mount Sinai right away and see if I can get seen the same day. So here we are back again in the same spot. I go to Mount Sinai. They take my blood pressure, and at that point it was normal. Everything was okay. It was a little higher than what they're typically used to seeing from me, but it was still within normal range. So it was right at the cutoff. But because of me being high risk, it was something that they had to monitor. Now, the big concern was my sugars being stabilized and nutrients getting to the baby. Yet again, I am admitted to the hospital again for about 3 days. My sugar was very on and off. I felt not the greatest for a little bit because of us trying to titrate my medication and making sure that it's okay for me and it's okay for the baby. There was a point in time during that stay that I started feeling contractions. Now, a good chunk of it was Braxton Hicks, but there was second last day, they checked me and it felt like the cerclage was opening up a little bit. At that point, they advised me that there's a possibility that they might need to take the cerclage out because it can tear into my cervix. What if Malachi comes out and I do a C-section then and there? I opted not to. I said, I'm feeling okay. The contractions started easing up a bit. And I started feeling better. So 2 days after, I ended up going home. But when I went home, that's when I really started feeling that the contractions were coming a little bit more frequently and it started hurting a little bit more. Now, I have a pretty high pain tolerance in general. When we were at the hospital with a bunch of like pregnant ladies, everybody's pain tolerance is totally different from each other. But that's what I was afraid of, was that because my pain tolerance was pretty good, that I wouldn't feel when things are coming my way. But this time it was coming. So I started counting it down. I started counting down how frequent they were, how often they were happening. Oh no, that's the same thing. How frequent they were, and how long they lasted, and the pain. I tricked it out for a little bit. Justin wanted me to go get checked at the hospital quite a few times, and I was like, no. Parking is expensive. I'm surviving. My water didn't break. I don't feel like I'm having a baby. Maybe I was in denial, but I was like, no. I'm okay. I'm tired of being at the hospital. We're going to stick this out until all the way to the end. Time came where I was getting my appointment. I had an appointment with the diabetes specialist at Mount Sinai to give me my requirements for the C-section. And since we were there, because I was feeling these contractions, my husband's like, you know what? Why don't we just go upstairs? It doesn't hurt to get checked just to make sure that you're okay. We're here anyway. We're going to be paying for parking. So instead of going home and then us coming back, doesn't hurt. So we went. I got tests. I got urine tests. I got blood tests, and it ended up having that I had an infection, and my blood pressure was high, and I was borderline for preeclampsia, or I had the startings of mild preeclampsia. So this was where now the question was, what did we want to do? The nurse practitioner came to me and she strongly advised for us to remove the cerclage, because if the baby was coming, again, as I said earlier, if the baby's coming and he comes full throttle, because now I'm starting to open up, there's a chance that if that stitch was there, that I would have tore through that. So she said, okay, I'm going to remove it, see how it goes. If everything remains stable, then what you can do is you can go home comfortably and everything's going to be fine. You're coming back tomorrow anyway for a follow-up visit to get an ultrasound. So let's just do that. She removes the cerclage, quick and easy. The one thing I hate are those speculums. Worst thing ever. But she goes and checks. And then within half an hour to an hour, I go from 1 centimeter dilated to 3 centimeters dilated. At that point, she looks at both me and Justin and is like, so we're having the baby today. Because of the risks, my blood pressure and everything, that was the problem. We need to go now. December the 11th, 2024 at 8:52 p.m. I was in for a C-section. During the C-section, baby came out, Malachi came out, 6.8 pounds. He came out within 5 minutes. Caught me open. You already hear him crying. He peed on all of the nurses and the doctors, so he definitely had a grand entrance. But my blood pressure was super high at that point too. So they had to monitor me. It went up to about 200, over 100 something. So they had to pump medications in me just to make sure that my blood pressure leveled out. Now, because of Malachi being a C-section preemie baby, so coming out at 36 weeks, there was a lot of fluid that was stuck in his lungs, so he wasn't breathing properly on his own. So, and because I'm a diabetic, he ended up being a sugar baby, which means his sugars were really low. So he had to go into the NICU, and I had to be separated from him. During that time, my blood pressure was still pretty high. They were monitoring me, giving me certain medications to make sure that I was okay. Malachi did really well. He came off the CPAP really quick. His sugars, it took a while. I got discharged before he did, so it was a while since I was able to hold my baby. But then a day after, he was good. We were able to take him home. His sugars were great. Everything was fantastic. This was I was discharged on a Friday. Malachi was discharged on a Saturday. Sunday, I felt a little odd. I was taking my blood pressure, and my blood pressure ended up being extremely high. So it would fluctuate from 160 over 98, 100, and then it went up to 172 over 110. This is when our friend Megan came by, and she's a nurse, a labor and delivery nurse at a Cardalucci hospital. She came by, and I thought that our blood pressure cuff was just being ridiculous. So she took my blood pressure manually, and lo and behold, it was extremely high. So she had to bring me to the hospital right away, because the risk of that is that obviously if your blood pressure is high, like there's a chance that you have eclampsia, which is that happens after pregnancy, and also what do you call that? And also, of course, stroking out, all that jazz. Went to the hospital, and yet again, I was admitted to the hospital. I went into Emerge. My blood pressure just wouldn't go down, so I wasn't able to go home. They pumped a lot of medications in me. There was a scare for a little bit. And because I also lost a bit of blood during the C-section, it was just a mixture of a lot of things that just culminated into everything happening afterwards. So at that point too, I don't even remember what happened. They pumped a lot of medications, trying to figure out which blood pressure medications would work, which ones don't, which will keep me stable. I ended up having an allergic reaction to one of them, so they had to pump me with Benadryl. And then they admitted me. I was there for about 3 days. And then there was a point in time that I almost lost faith that I was going to be able to go home and actually be a mother for another week, because my blood pressure just stayed high. Then thank God, after 3 days, it finally decreased, and then I ended up being able to go home on blood pressure medications, and I'm still on them right now, but I'm slowly weaning off because it's getting better. So the eclampsia is clearing out. Then a couple of days ago, I felt that my incision wasn't feeling great. It started to hurt, started to turn red. I went to my doctor, and it was infected. So I went to the doctor. Doctor was concerned that there was some buildup that was happening inside the incision. So I went to North York General, got it checked, and thank God it wasn't as bad. It was irritated. Nothing was inside. Nothing was happening in the other layers. Like, it's disgusting, but in the other parts of my body. So I was just given something to help clear it up. I had my incision looked at a couple days ago, and thank God nothing happened under the other layers, so it was something more superficial. So they gave me something to help clear it up, and also They did advise that I rest a little bit more and not carry things because like I'm stubborn and I move around, and when you are not doing much for almost 7 months, that drives you nuts. So as much as possible, I try to do what I can, but I still have to remember that it was still a major surgery and I need to calm down and actually let myself recover. So now I'm doing better. Malachi is doing well. He is a little colicky and he does have a bit of gas problems. Hopefully it gets better. It's been tiring, of course. I mean, our first one's 13 years old, so it's been a while since we've went around doing this rodeo. So it's now us trying to navigate around having a newborn again. But we're blessed. We're thankful. He came out. He's good. He's healthy. And I'm just extremely thankful that even though like I went through a lot, and I think this is going to be our last kid unless we decide to have a dog. We have a cat already, so unless we decide to add to the family like that, this is the last round of things that, or at least being pregnant, as far as I'm concerned with that. But that's pretty much it. Lessons learned throughout this, that you have to have a good support system around you, whether it's your husband or partner, family, good friends. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to get through all this. I feel like we underestimate the role of your other half, your better half in this, because you have to remember that it's both of you together that's encountering all of this together. So like that didn't make sense, but still, you know what I mean. Physically, mentally, of course, like I was going through it, but also seeing my husband, how patient he was, and of course how he dealt with it, because sometimes, especially for a person that likes to have the answers to everything and likes to make sure that he is able to do something, it was also hard on him because there's a lot of things that were not in our control. And I know that it was difficult for him to, one, watch me go through this, but also worrying about me and the baby constantly. So for him, that was a journey as well. So we also have to keep in mind that if there's two of us going through this, and then on the top of that too, we have our son who, like, we have to think about, like, he's in school. Most of the time, because he's not old enough, he gets left behind, or he has to go to somebody else's place and has to work around his, like, schedule to try to be like, okay, how am I going to get up to school? How is this going to work out? So it's affected on all ends. So we have to always remember that that's how it works. And we have to appreciate everybody that's around us. I appreciate my parents, Justin's parents, my sister-in-law, my sister, like my work, everybody at work who was extremely supportive and always checking up on me and now the baby, ensuring that everybody was okay. So that helped a lot throughout this journey. But yeah, pretty much that's it. You'll probably see a couple more vlogs coming up with the baby, how he's growing. The main reason why these vlogs were started in the first place was to keep a video or to keep a memory of, or a recorded story of memories that we create. We look back at the videos we've done with Ruben. We look back at the videos that we've done with our family, and it's just nice to look back at and be able to have this recording of our lives, whether it's all aspects of it or just little bits and pieces. It's just nice to have a memory of this, and for Kai, we want to make sure that he has that as well. So you'll get bits and pieces of it. You'll see him grow along with us, and see how our lives unfold with all this. One last thing, always check on people you care about. You don't know what they're going through, and sometimes it's nice to just see and make sure that they're doing okay. That's what helped me get through this, and you could be that person that can help somebody get through it as well. So until next time.